Alright, so now I have no idea. So polar graph paper, I gave you a copy of this, alright? And I told you instead of using an x and a y, they use an r and a theta. Okay? The r represents the distance away from the origin or the center. Okay? So r is a distance. Those distances are represented by the circles. Because anything on this first circle, we're going to say, is exactly 1 unit away from the origin, from the middle. Anything on the next largest circle, we'll say, is 2 units away from the center. Third circle is 3 units away, fourth circle is 4 units away, and so on. The angles are just like the angles we've been working with in class. This is 0 degrees over here. This is 90 straight up here. This is 180, this is 270, that's 360. Okay? I think on your polar graph paper, I think each one counts by 10 degrees. Double check that. Make sure that it's 90 degrees, then we'll be straight up.
Yes.
Okay? So each one of yours represents 10 degrees, each line. I didn't do that many of them because it wouldn't have looked good for me to draw that up here by myself graphing it, okay? For me up here, I'm going to say this one's my 30-degree angle, this is my 45, and this is my 60, because those are the most common ones we've used in class, 30, 45s, and 60s, okay? So one of the things you will have to be able to do is simply just plot points on polar graph paper, okay? And depending on time, there's a little game that I have for you on Friday that we can do with this, okay? Let's say I asked you to plot the point 2, 120 degrees. 2, 120 degrees. What is this coordinate then telling you? Second circle at 120 degrees. So a lot of times, guys, you're actually going to probably find 120 degrees first. Or maybe not. Maybe you just go second circle. But I personally would probably go to where the 120-degree angle would be, which would be this one right here. Okay? This one represents 120 degrees. And then I need to find a point that is 2 units away from the origin at this angle. So here's the origin. I know this is the angle I'm dealing with, and I need to go 2 units away from the origin. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and that would be located right here. So 2, 120 degrees would be plotted at that location. Does that make sense? Okay. Try this one. 3, 225, which will be, you'll have to estimate on yours since you're counting by tens. So 3, 225. See if you can plot that one on yours. So 225 for me is going to be on this one. You're going to have to go right in between 220 and 230 because yours is counting by tens, right? And then you go 3 units away from the origin. So 1 circle, 2 circle, 3 circles. So right there, that would be the blue point located up here. So 3, 225. What if I gave you this? -2, 60 degrees. What do you think that would be located? Not that you would ever probably use that a lot. You probably figured out how to make it use a positive value, but how do you think that could work?
You go 60 degrees and find it. 1, 2, and then just go.
Opposite direction? Yep, very good. So I'd find 60 degrees, which would be right here. So I know it's gonna be somewhere here. I'm not going 2 units in the 60-degree direction. I'm going -2 in the 60-degree direction, so that means I'm just gonna go back the opposite way. You guys follow me on that? So, the green one here. So that's plotting points on a polar coordinate system. Questions, thoughts, comments? They might use radians instead, so you just have to adjust if they use radians. They might use angles that are larger than 360, which just means you end up going around the circle an extra time. It doesn't mean the point's going to end up at a different location. You just have to find an angle that's coterminal with it. Yeah, that's really it. I just want to make sure that you guys knew how to plot points. You will have to be able to plot points for the test. And we'll also end up drawing circles and lines on this as well, which are very, very simple. Here's how simple they are. I'll go over them real quick, I guess. If I told you to graph the equation r equals 4, draw the circle at 4. Because what does r represent? Distance away from the origin, right? So if you had to draw all of the points whose distance away from the origin was 4, well, where would that occur? 1, 2, 3, the fourth circle. Wouldn't all of these points on that fourth circle be exactly 4 units away from the origin? So r equals 4 is a circle on the 4th unit out. That's how you draw circles. And then lines, instead of the equation saying r equals something, it's going to say theta equals something. If I would say theta equals pi over 2. Theta equals pi over 2. So that means like I want all points that would fall on the pi over 2 angle. Well, pi over 2 is straight up, right? So that would be everything here or here, because if the r value was negative, it could end up down here. So theta equals pi over 2, or theta equals 90 degrees, ends up being a vertical line right there on the y-axis. So we'll get to that a little bit more later as well. But kind of just a quick overview of the polar coordinate system. So, fairly simple. Okay. There's some practice plotting point problems in your textbook. They are on page 558, 16 through 27. Page 558, 16 through 27. Page 558, 16 through 27. I'll pass out an extra sheet of polar graph paper. Obviously, don't use one thing for one point, okay? Put about 3 or 4 of them on each one, so you're not having to go through a ton of paper. Alright? Want to hit pause for me, please?